Hey, what's up? This is Fantasy Fling with dfsarmy. We are talking week 11. First look, Battle Royale drafts on Underdog Fantasy. We're going to look at some matchups that we want to target, player ADPs, maybe some really good leverage spots for the slate. So let's get into it. All right, so I have the game tiles queued up over at dfsarmy, and if while you're here, hit that like button if you like these first look drafts. I like to do these early in the week, kind of get a feel for this, the main slate. My process is kind of look at all the matchups, get in some of these battle royale drafts, see what the field is doing, see where we can get some potential leverage spots. So without further ado, let's get into some of the best game environments. I think a few of these game environments have shootout potential, but the one that clearly stands out above the rest is going to be Cincinnati versus Pittsburgh. We've kind of already seen this game shootout, and sure, there is some concern that these teams will adjust. It's a divisional game. Divisional chalk typically fails at a high rate. That said, Cincinnati's defense has been so bad, and they have so much on offense with Chase and Higgins that I really think this game, probably will go to the over like we saw last time. Maybe not, quite the shootout, but I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy goodness from this game. Cincinnati, they're giving up the most points per game, 33, and their defense has just been one to target just across the board, at running back, at wide receiver, at quarterback. So this spot sets up really well for the Pittsburgh offense. Pittsburgh running game, Jalen Warren, maybe Kenneth Gainwell if you get really weird with it. Definitely DK Metcalf, the tight ends, some scroll down plays, maybe Calvin Austin. So it would be interesting to see ADPs, and then obviously Aaron Rodgers will be viable as well. So this is a good spot for me. And you can obviously play the other side of that. Pittsburgh, they've been just kind of a middle of the pack defense. Not a good defense by any means, and not one to avoid. So they're actually giving up the fourth most fantasy points to quarterbacks. They are, giving up the most fantasy points to wide receivers. So yeah, they've definitely been one to target. They're more of a pass funnel, so it's definitely more of a Flacco and Chase and Higgins type of week. So not surprising. Now, a couple other spots. I like this Tampa and Buffalo game. Tampa, they're hard to run on, so they have been more of a pass funnel so far this year. And honestly, they've just been, I think they're a little banged up on defense. They haven't been the elite run stopper that we've seen in past years. So I think you can run on them a little bit, specifically because James Cook is such a good running back that can be shifty and just has this kind of breakaway speed. So you can run on them a little bit, but really sets up more for the passing game. Josh Allen, Khalil Shakir, those type of guys. But what I do like about this game is Buffalo has not had as good of a defense this year as we've seen from years past. So I like also, this game being competitive back and forth, not a grinded out type of win. So Baker stacks are back. We saw a lot of Baker to Cade Otton, to Buka, to Ted Johnson. What took down the Millie last week was Baker +3 with a bring back. So those will be in play again. Obviously on Battle Royale, that's not really something that we see. But maybe Baker +2, definitely Baker plus like Ibuka or Ted Johnson. Now, there's a game that stands out, but it's like what kind of play we're going to get from the quarterback, and that's Chicago and Minnesota. Like this is a really good spot for Minnesota, but we have not seen consistency from JJ McCarthy, so I do not know how much I like this spot as of right now. There are definitely pieces from it. My inclination early on would be to play the Caleb side, look at bringbacks, but we'll be interested to see ADPs. Maybe we can get, JJ McCarthy in the last round of drafts. So that'll be interesting. Couple other spots, divisional games, and these divisional games can get a little crazy. Obviously, Seattle, they have a good defense, but they also have more of a pass funnel because they are very hard to run on. So yeah, they're kind of, top 12 run defense. And the same thing at in the passing defense. But one thing that I would say is different, and this game probably has a high range of outcomes, and it could be like it's just a defensive battle, but the Rams are so efficient on offense, averaging 27 points per game, and so is Seattle, averaging 30 points a game, that both of these teams have so much offensive firepower that I could see this game hitting the over. I also love that, like, if you play JSN this week, you don't have to worry about them blowing out the competition and JSN just not being that involved later on in the game because they didn't need him. So this game projects us back and forth, and I think that is definitely one of the most likely outcomes in this game. But there are possibilities that this game just goes to the under. And then last, San Francisco at Arizona. San Francisco's really banged up on defense, and both of these teams have kind of been good matchups across the board. You can run on them, you can pass on them. So I think this game has shootout potential. I like playing both sides of it. Specifically, I think I like the Brissett side a little bit more, unless we get Pierce all back, just because I feel like Marvin Harrison Jr., George Kittle, and, down to like third string running back, I think it's more likely they attack San Fran through the air than on the ground. So I like that. And then I love bringbacks from this game as well. Christian McCaffrey, obviously, Jennings, Kittle. So I think this is a pretty good game environment we're going to target. So let's hop into a draft if we can here. It's pretty early that I'm recording this, so hopefully we don't have to wait very long. We can kind of talk through some of the matchups. Waiting for 4 people. Okay, so as of right now, 3 people. All right, it's moving. As of right now, this is early on in the week. Some of the matchups we have not quite put in our projections at DFS Army yet. So, take it with a grain of salt. But Bijan, popping, high projection. The problem with Bijan, especially half PPR site like Underdog, is he's losing those goal line carries to Tyler Algier. And, he can't do enough, like, as far as a receiver with like PPR to really bring a good floor ceiling combination that I like. It obviously has a ceiling, but predicting when he's going to go off for that 30-point game is really hard when he's not getting the goal line carries. So I would probably fade that. Henry against the Browns, I don't love that spot. They have a really good run defense. Some of the matchups that I would be looking to target, kind of start out with Christian McCaffrey, as we just talked about there. Josh Jacobs, this is a really good spot for Josh Jacobs. I'm going against a New York Giants team that gives up a lot of fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. fact, we can take a look here and see. Let me pull up half PPR for us. So they're giving up 25 points per game to opposing running back. So I think this is a really good spot for Josh Jacobs. Really good bounce back spot for Green Bay, who looked terrible on Monday night. Bucky Irving, I don't think he's going to play again. So Rachaad White actually has a good matchup against Buffalo. They're one of the teams giving up the most fantasy points to opposing running backs. So I like that spot there for Rachaad White. Don't love Kyron in this spot. Certainly could get there, could fall into the end zone a couple times in a game environment that ends up being high scoring. But don't really love that spot for him. We go to, some of the other matchups on the slate. Actually, pretty good spot for Woody Marks. Where is he popping up at? Not projected very well as of right now. All right, so we are going to be picking third. So honestly, we'll see how the first couple picks go, because I feel like this is really a week where we could just go off the board, not take a running back first, go wide receiver, get a running back on the way back. So we'll kind of see how that shakes down. But Jaylen Warren going against Pitt, I think that is going to be a spot that I would be looking to target, and he's looking to not be that highly projected right now. RJ Harvey, this is interesting. J.K. Dobbins is a candidate for IR. So I think RJ Harvey is a guy that we will be looking to target late in our drafts, potentially. Let's look at some ADP values now that we're in here. So Christian McCaffrey looking to go off the board first, then Chase, JSN, Bijan, Puka, Jacobs. Yeah, these all make sense to me. We'll see who we're left with here. I would take Chase, but if he's not available, I think the move here is to take JSN. I mean, one for one, I would rank Puka over JSN. But yeah, I think Chase was just auto there. So I think we'll take JSN here. Just because I think there's going to be some running back value, so we might as well. One for one, I would take Puka over JSN. But JSN does not have a Devontae Adams across from him. So that is the thing with Puka. There's the probability of a high fail rate just because Devontae Adams is such a good football player that he, can break the slate on his own. So it goes London, McBride, Bijan, Puka Nacua coming back to me here in a second, going fast. Josh Jacobs. I would take Rico Dowdle here if he's available, which I will. This is a good bounce back spot for him against Atlanta. Rico Dowdle, yeah, he has one of the best matchups on the slate against Atlanta. So, kind of let everyone down last week. It was a smash spot. Only got 15 points. I'm definitely comfortable going back to it. It's interesting. Maybe, I kind of said I didn't want to take Puka because of the Adams, so that's why I went JSN. Maybe we can get Adams. What is his ADP? 26? So Rashid Rice went going against Denver. Yeah, I'm probably fading Rashid Rice this week against Denver. I think there's a good chance that Denver puts a lot of focus on Rashid Rice, and maybe it'll be an Xavier Worthy over the top type of week. I think I'm going to take my quarterback here. Come back around, maybe get Devontae Adams. I think I'm going to target RJ Harvey late just because it's early in the week. I don't think the field is reacting, is really paying attention to the fact that J.K. Dobbins is probably not going to play this week. So I think that's going to be the move. We take Josh Allen if he's available, and he is not. Maybe I don't really want to take Lamar against Cleveland. That's a tough one. All right, I'm going to do it. I'm pretty sure Lamar had a big game this year against Cleveland, so it's not like he's never had them. And what's good about Lamar is I will just be running him as a one-off, so I'm not having to guess who to stack him with since I'm clearly targeting other games. I'm going to take Devontae Adams most likely, but also part of me is like maybe I should just take DK Metcalf. I need to put in some type of correlation. If I do take DK Metcalf over Devontae Adams, which I think would be a pretty good play here, I could look at getting Kyle Pitts to correlate with Rico Dowdle because you want some type of correlation in your lineup, right? I think I'm going to take DK Metcalf. I just think that game is one that you want to have a piece of it every single draft. So, I think that's the play. We'll leave Devontae Adams for someone else. And then, I could take Kyle Pitts. I could take RJ Harvey because he's going undrafted right now. And I don't expect that to be the case by the end of the week. So, let's look at some more ADPs. Or we could just kind of look at the board a little bit. Get a feel for ADPs. Rashee Rice, I think there's a vast range of outcomes with Rashee Rice this week. I think Denver has been very good in the secondary, even with Patrick Surtain out. They're going to give him a lot of attention. I could see it being more a Kelsey, Thornton, Hollywood Brown, like specifically Xavier Worthy over the top. Denver has definitely been beat on the double step this year. The double move. It's just a lot of the passes have been uncatchable, but they could definitely get beat there, and Mahomes will exploit that. So I would like Worthy. Maybe he's a guy that we can get late. I think it's coming back around to me in a second. So Kate Otton's there, but if I knew Godson was going to play, he's got a really good matchup, but he does not correlate, and I need some type of correlation. We're going to go with Kyle Pitts to correlate with Rico Dowdle. And then we will get RJ Harvey at the end of this thing. But Igbukah, I love Igbukah this week in this spot. That's it. I think that's a good spot for him. Obviously, you stack him up with Mayfield, but you could just run him solo. Jacobs probably, at this ADP, he might be my top running back on the slate. If that's where he's going to go. I love that. Nico Collins, pretty good spot for Nico. Who are they going against? Oh, yeah, Tennessee. It's a great spot for Nico against Tennessee. I think it's fair that Allen and Jackson are the top quarterbacks off the board. Herbert has a good matchup as well. Interesting to see where like Flacco and Rodgers are going to go. I'll definitely be doing a few more of these drafts and targeting those guys if no one's going to be drafting them. So that's very interesting. Matchup of the week, and they're not really being targeted yet, so we'll have to see. Yeah, so we'll review my team real quick. I obviously started this draft with JSN at the 3rd overall pick. Thought about doing it with DK, doing a little ping pong stack with Devontae Adams, but I just think in this spot against Cincinnati, DK Metcalf is going to be the higher probability pick. That's a game I want a piece of. Rico Dowdle, I think it's a good bounce back spot, one of the best matchups on the slate for him. And, I was able to get a stack with Kyle Pitts, who has a pretty good matchup as well at tight end. Carolina has given up the 5th most fantasy points on the slate to opposing tight ends. So get that correlation there with Rico Dowdle, and then finish it out with RJ Harvey. And J.K. Dobbins is an IR candidate, so it's very unlikely that he plays this week. RJ Harvey has massive upside. I don't think he's going to get the full workload. He's going to be splitting with Tyler Bidet. But the thing with RJ Harvey is Sean Payton's already scheming him up. I mean, he had like 3 touchdowns on 8 opportunities just a few weeks ago. So with volume, he obviously has massive upside, especially with them scheming him up in the red zone and him running the Wildcat. So I expect to see more of that. So yeah, I think this is a good first look draft. Let's kind of finish this out with some of the ADPs here we're seeing here. So Justin Jefferson, this is a really good spot for Jefferson. You get him at the 3-4 turn. I love that. And you can stack him up with J.J. McCarthy, who looks like is not being drafted in some of these drafts. And I think it's crazy also that Flacco and Rodgers are not being drafted. So just want to mention that again. Yeah, I like where I got DK Metcalf. Herbert, I do love Herbert this week. Stack him up with Ladd, with Keenan, with Johnston. And obviously you could run him naked if you're not doing a lot of these and, don't want to guess which wide receiver that you're going to need to have with him this week. But it's a decent spot against Jacksonville. We saw what Tennessee did to Jacksonville, or Houston did to Jacksonville last week. So they're definitely a defense that you can throw all over. So love Herbert. Higgins, this is a good spot for Higgins. Obviously, Chase going 1.2. Higgins has had a good connection with Flacco. So, we've seen him be the guy you need. Devontae Adams, yeah, he went late. Thought about taking him, went with DK Metcalf. But I think Devontae Adams is a fantastic leverage play this week. Good spot for Judkins. Not a bad matchup for Judkins. The Cleveland offense is definitely hard to predict, but with Dylan Gabriel under center, but it's definitely not a bad matchup for Judkins at home. Zay Flowers, like Marvin Harrison Jr., this is a good spot for him. This is a last round pick that I love. Godson, I was tempted to pick Godson. If he plays, he's in a smash spot, but I wanted that correlation with Rico Dowdle to have some correlation in my lineup since I wasn't stacking Lamar. This is a good spot for Chase Brown. Chase Brown went undrafted. So it's not the best running matchup, but because the game environment has such high shootout potential and he's a pass catcher, that kind of negates that. He can easily fall into the end zone a couple times and make value, especially where you're getting him late. Love this matchup for Colson Loveland this week. DeAndre Swift looked really good last week in his return, splitting with Monungai, but in the last round certainly could get there. Good spot for Aaron Jones. So I love that. And Woody Marks. So these are some really good plays at the end of drafts that, you could cycle through and take some shots on this week. But that's going to do it for your week 11 first look draft. Let me know who you're on this week in the comments. Let me know, what type of scroll down plays you want, maybe an undervalued stack that you're on this week. And make sure to subscribe to the channel because we got a lot more content coming your way for NFL Week 11 and the rest of the season. And of course, we don't just do NFL, we do NBA, we do NHL, you name it. We probably cover it for DFS. So thank you again. We'll see you next time.